Good evening and welcome to Focus on Liberia. This is what you've been waiting for all week. Tough Talking Thursday on Focus on Liberia. My name is Dennis Jar, and we're broadcasting from Atlanta, Georgia. In tonight's edition of Tough Talking Thursday, we're going to be looking at the forensic report that was authorized or paid for by Mr. Alexander Cummings. And this report is out, and we're going to be delving into it. We want to welcome all our viewers from across the globe. Here at Focus on Liberia, we educate, we elevate, and promote all things Liberia. So, discussing this tonight, I have our public policy analyst, Mrs. Carl Famuleko. Carl, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
It's always a pleasure to be here.
We also have our governance and planning consultant, Mr. Ahmed Salif. Ahmed, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Thank you, Dennis. I'm looking forward to it.
Joining us also is our political analyst, Mr. Mohammed Sharif, who also comes from Waplo Institute from Kilipo Kanwekin, all the way in River G. Comrade Sharif, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Thank you, Dennis. It's great to be here.
And we have sought and gotten, and she has accepted to be here, Telvina Cole of SKTV, an IT auditor and general auditor. So because we are talking about a forensic audit report, who best can help us sort this out? And Telvina Cole. Telvi, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Thank you. Glad to be here to share the space with you guys.
Again, we want to welcome all our viewers from across the globe at Focus on Liberia. We're going to be looking at the audit report. So as a way of a welcome or an introductory statement, let me get your feel. I know if you had a chance to read it, what's your feeling first when you heard that Mr. Cummings has hired an outside firm, or two at a time, and they call, their names I had to call Omnia and Alaco. One of them by the wife of the former British Prime Minister, Tony Blair, Claire Blair. So let's go around the room. Mr. Shalif, the report is out. I don't know if you have a chance to read it first. Hearing about the report and reading it, what jumped out of you?
Oh, thank you again, Dennis. Happy to be here. What jumped out of me? This is a politician who is worried about his international image, who is worried about a lot of damage happening to his personal image in Liberia, in a country where he's running for political office. And so he's planning to put something out there that's suggests what's happening in the Liberian courts, in the Liberian media, in the Liberian political arena, that are not, from his perspective, and according to now the findings of this report, that they are baseless, that they don't stand the test of scrutiny in court and in public opinion. That is, on the one hand, I believe that's really that was really the reason behind this this report, and that's just been issued. How much it helps this politician, Mr. Cummings, locally in Liberia, or even in this particular case, remains to be seen.
All right, Carl. Let's look at this report also. I want to say what jumped out of here, especially being a member, I don't know if you still are, of the collaborating political party, because all this comes as a result of what we know today as the CPP framework document. So getting an audit report on this one, whether it was tampered with or not, and now we heard that Mr. Cummings was doing this. Within no time, the report is out. What's your initial reaction to the report after reading it?
I mean, I wish that we would have seen this kind of due diligence applied during the process of structuring the agreement, and also during the process of executing and consummating the agreement. There were a lot of very, kind of bizarre and unconventional processes employed or lack thereof, with not only sharing the information in the document, very strange, and also the process of obtaining signatures was extremely unconventional. I would even say unprofessional on the part of all of the signatories and those involved, including the attorneys. I mean, you're signing a document with multiple organizations, pages are not initialed. Each page wasn't initialed, and then you can still consummate a contract without initialing pages, but it's unconventional. And the reason that's not part of what is considered best practices is because of exactly the situation we're in today. If things had been done correctly, there would be no need for anyone even being court or, this back and forth and all of this. So he has every right to now go and have someone else take a look at it. But, it's just very unfortunate that things were done in such an unprofessional manner to begin with.
Mr. Sharif, the report is out, and let me show you the name of it. It's called The Framework of Political Persecution, the Case of Alexander Cummings, prepared by Alaco Limited and Omnia Strategy LLP. Mr. Sharif, you read the report, or you heard about it. What's your first reaction?
Yeah, I heard about it, and I took a peek. I wasn't really much interested, to be honest, with you. So Arlaco and Omnia Strategy produced this report on behalf of Alexander Cummings. Keep in mind, these companies are paid or were hired by Alexander Cummings. So therefore, the product of the report, of course, is going to reflect in a friendly manner towards Mr. Cummings. So you will see the report did not do a due diligence of speaking to some of the actors. The report did not say that there was an interview, for example, with one of the main actors in this process, and that's Benana Yuri. The report did not say that there was a conversation with former Vice President Boycott. The report did not say that. So there are key actors left out in the report. What I've found also telling is the disclaimer in the report. I've never seen anything like that. The disclaimer is whatever we wrote here, we cannot be held legally liable. Maybe we can talk about that a little later. But what does all this mean? What it means is the distrust in the Liberian judicial system. I've talked about this a lot. I've spoken about these issues a lot. And we have an administration right now that's very incompetent. They're not interested. This administration is very disinterested in anything. So all of a sudden, we have a prosecutor who's interested in this issue. This is a prosecutor who was accused of some sort of, whose name was dropped in some sort of racialistic conculsion, right? I'm not accusing him of racialistic killing. That's not that's not what I'm doing. In fact, when we talked about it at that time, I actually defended him. But what I would like to see at the time was for some sort of investigation to occur. So you have all of these issues going on in the Liberian nation state at this time. And what is the government focused on right now? Is they're infatuated with Alexander Cummings. This is a disgrace. This is a disgrace. That the only thing that they can focus on, the only thing that he's exuberant about is the prosecution and persecution of Alexander Cummings. And I think the Liberian people should be outraged that this is going on in this manner. It is a disgrace. Liberia, look, you walk around and you're ashamed to even call yourself a Liberian, at least for me right now, until this administration is dispatched from the political scene in 2023.
Thank you. Let me go to Tavina. Tavina, this is titled, what we heard was a forensic audit report. for what I want to find out from you when someone say audit report, what is it and what necessitates an audit report? Because we got one. So why would anybody need an audit report? And what does an audit report do?
Thank you, Dennis. So audit reports serve several purposes. I mean, it can be for the public, be in the know. It can be internally for internal review and to review the processes and the systems there to see, where the weaknesses are, and how can you improve the process. It could be some sort of investigation. So different purposes, or just a compliance, thing like SOX report or compliance report, just to meet, federal or state guidelines. So different reports for different things, but it serves several purposes. It could be just for your board of directors or for your investors, for your stakeholders. So it serves different purposes, but to inform, also to evaluate your processes to see how you're doing and how you can improve if needed.
So in the case of this report now, what jumped out of you after reading the report? I know you are so meticulous reading these things. What's your initial reaction to I like the name, and we're going to come to that name later on. It's the framework of political persecution, the case of Alexander B. Cummings, prepared by Alaco Limited and Omnia Strategy. What's your initial reaction to the release of this report?
So before we go into the report, I'll be very clear here. When Mr. Cummings visited SKTV a few months ago, that by then they were just talking about this investigative committee report that was incomplete. It was in draft. There was no conclusion. There was confusion. I had a problem with it because, first of all, the parties involved in the committee, they were not independent. They were the same cooks in the kitchen. So when he came to SKTV, I suggested to him that they all need to get a third-party review, just to make sure, nothing's going on, and most of all, he's clean. He said he didn't want it, but yeah, we are. But when I look at the report, there's several things. The first thing that jumped at me was the title. So if you look at the statement of work or the scope, it said that you're looking at, claims for forgery. So if you're looking for claims of forgery related to a CPP framework document, then your title should reflect such. But when you say you're looking at political persecution, then that's something more. And also, too, if you're independent, it appears that you already made a biased conclusion. Mm-hmm. Are you looking at the CPP framework document? Are you evaluating their processes, everything there are the signatures, everything within, or you're looking at the CPP document and the court process? But when you start talking about political prosecution, then you're tipping it over to the court process. So I had a concern with the cover just to begin with. And then the language within, the verbiage, the language, then the disclaimer. Mr. Sherry talk about the disclaimer, and I know we're going to go into it. Yeah. The disclaimer is just way out of hand, and I'm surprised that the Cummings did not catch up on this, because I understand that the different terms in that the disclaimer, standard auditing or investigation, third-party disclaimer will sometimes refer to it as the banner clause, the abandonment clause, but there's a piece to it that I said we will not even stand by our own opinion. Everything of this, we're not going to take any ownership. So we transfer you 100% liability, 100% risk back to the owner. Most times in these things, they will say, well, we don't do this, but however, we assume liability, or we owe some legal responsibility to our client or the firm or something like that. That language should be in there. So you're standing by your work. As Walmart, you stand by the product, right? You're standing by your product, but you cannot even stand by your own opinion. It's questionable. And I must say, I'm surprised that the Cummings did not catch it. Knowing they have experts, they know it all. I'm surprised they didn't catch that. So I'll rest.
Well, yeah, then we'll come to that disclaimer, because I had to looking at this report. First of all, in your mind, what is the purpose? What is the need? What purpose does this forensic audit serve, or is supposed to?
So this was definitely about public relations and Mr. Cummings needing to clear his name and exonerate himself, not only to the Liberian people, but also to clearly to the international community, because the firms that he chose in London, one being headed by a person who is notoriously racist and horrible. It says, the most disturbing things about African women and African people, although she claims to be a women's rights advocate. She's also, my understanding, Mrs. Blair and her husband are also good friends of Mrs. Solis. But other than the choice of people that he made, which I completely am disturbed by, he had every right to do this, for his own clearing his own name. He had every right to do it, and I think that my concern is that in a forensic audit, while you are auditing documents to ascertain facts, it is also typical in a forensic audit to conduct interviews. And I didn't see that was done. And I think a lot of people are under the impression that auditors only inspect documents. That's not true. There is such a thing as a forensic audit interview, especially when you are looking at a case that's criminal. I've been involved in those, through my work. And whenever there's, especially accounting, this is what's typically done. This seems much more to be a public relations, I'm not going to use the word stunt, but exercise. It seems much more to be the language, to me, is extremely, it's not neutral. I'll put it that way. The language isn't neutral. And, which is fine. He paid for it, and he should get what he paid for. Whether or not that is going to help him, with the case in Liberia is a different question. I've always said that I believe that this case is frivolous. I don't understand even why this CPP framework document was even structured the way it was. I think one of the biggest revelations of this audit report is really just how incredibly incompetent, the framers were in the process of how they executed the document. That's very embarrassing. I mean, that's now out there for the whole international press to see, that we had all of these adults heading political parties in Liberia that executed an agreement so terribly unprofessionally, which has led us now to two cases in court, one with the LOFA and this other one with Mr. Cummings, both of which are completely frivolous, in my opinion.
Thank you. Mr. Sirleaf, same question as to the purpose, really. Who is this report? Who is it targeted? Who is it written for? In your view, and what is it supposed to accomplish?
Well, sometimes a report like this in a court case, and just to be sure, these are not unusual. You can commission an expert opinion, just like anybody can join a court case by providing expert opinions, and this is not what that was exactly, right? It was not an amicus brief. However, you can commission a report or an investigative forensic sort of examination of evidentiary processes, circumstances. So in a legal trial, they have what's called production of evidence, production and discovery. In discovery processes, both attorneys or lawyers on both sides are expected to exchange evidence. They're expected to basically, in the interest of due process of law, to begin their case on an equal footing. Now, these two firms that were chosen to do this work, Omnia is a law firm, it's an international law firm. However, it does not just practice law. It clearly states that the type of law they practice is what I call political law,
Exactly.
or the law of politics, right? They say they look at public government, implications of government and law. They look at public policy. They look at business practices that may lead to incriminating individuals and so on around the world. And it's a new company, actually, I think 2011, if I'm not mistaken. And then Alaco, on the other hand, is supposed to be the investigative partner in this. They are the really forensic expert in this, right? So the purpose, earlier on, I said, I think Mr. Cummings, I don't know the individual personally. I am not connected with him. I've met him several times. But I think that, like Cole said, this is a public relations venture to merely for his friends, his partners, his people, his holdings, his international holdings and business interest. And, he sits on a lot of boards. He has been a corporate executive of some serious international companies. So he's concerned about that. Listen, the way we do politics in Liberia is a little bit unconventional. The way we talk about politics in the public discourses, even in the legal arena, the way we, our jurisprudence works in Liberia sometimes. And it's not just Liberia, right? Historically, there have been political trials. There have been trials where, you basically try to eliminate your opposition, your opponent, right? Like in any legal case, first you have to establish the theory of your case. So the way I see it, the prosecution's theory here is the Solicitor General theory is, well, these guys, political friends have brought him to the attention of the government, right? For basically some kind of felony allegations of fraud, of fraudulent, manipulation of a legal document. And so the government picks up the case of all cases. The theory, as I see it, what we prosecute, we convict, we destroy, we eliminate. Well, what Mr. Cummings' legal team, what's their theory? Like, what is the sort of the path to vindication? That is, I don't know if the intent was this particular investigative report should help in that process. It's almost like synchronization of the evidence, right? So that you bring evidence together, you thoroughly look at it, look at an independent party that takes a look and says, you see, I verified this thing, here it is. But I think that it was a strategically political error on the part of a politician who wants to be president of a country. Because on the other hand, you're saying, I do not trust the judiciary. I do not trust the judicial experts, our system in Liberia. If there's an electoral dispute today, I will look to some international processes. So the question is, why do you want to be president of a country whose system you do not trust? These people might argue, well, that's why he wants to become president, so he can change the system, so he can bring trust in the system. But this is a political trial. You have to understand, this is not just a criminal trial, an ordinary criminal trial, some kind of ordinary judicial trial. This is purely a political trial. And political trials, your lawyers have to know more than the law. They have to understand the political implications, and I believe they do. They also have to have political strategies to help them with image, to help them not to make some terrible political error in an attempt to defend a client, to vindicate his name.
Thank you. And we're going to jump into the report. We are just on the surface here. Let me ask Mr. Sharif, why, a foreign firm, Tony Blair's wife, that's a big name. Is it why? And will an African firm or a Liberian firm would be any different, or to say, well, let's get this? So still speaking to the purpose, what is Mr. Cummings trying to accomplish here by using white people? Let me put it that way.
Simply put, Mr. Cummings does not trust the system. Dennis, I don't trust the system either. This is a corrupt system. This is an incompetent system of government of ours in Liberia at this time. And so Mr. Cummings does not trust the system. This trial has been going on for quite some time. Why is all this delay? This delay is unnecessary. And George Weah, you can accuse George Weah of everything, including, very thin academic record, but you can't accuse him of not being of someone. He's very meticulous in terms of being fraudulent, in terms of creating problems for his opponent. So he has that smart. He's not a very smart man, but he has that smart to put roadblocks, stumbling blocks in the way of his opponent. We saw that with the legitimate senator from Lofa County, Brownie Samuka, who was stripped of his position, who was stripped. The man was duly elected senator of Lofa County, and George Weah and his cronies. These guys, again, you can accuse them of everything, including being stupid, but they know what to do to get rid of their political opponents, politically speaking. And so that's what they're doing right now. And so Mr. Cummings' intent here is for national and international consumption. Mr. Cummings, remember, this is not Mr. Cummings' first time of going out to seek international support. Keep in mind that some time ago, maybe a year ago, he's spent some money to get some foreign lobbyists. Didn't we talk about that some time ago? Yeah. So he knows his way around. Again, Ahmed says something very profound. If you're trying to be a president of Liberia, why are you trying to go out there? But simply put, he does not trust the system. And to respond to Ahmed, these guys, are not going to change anything much, right? So I don't have any confidence that he's going to come in there as some kind of a radical African patriot to change everything around. These guys are not, they're not this kind of patriot. So you're giving them too much credit. So I'm not about to give them that credit. But Dennis, there's a history of political parties seeking outside support. Back in 1951, when Detour and the United People's Party was debarred by Tubman under Tubman dictatorship, Detour Nettie Brownell. Nettie Brownell is the maternal grandfather of Henry Bonham Fambelet, Dr. Henry Bonham Fambelet. In 1951, supporters of Detour, including Nettie C. Brownell, wrote the United Nations. They wrote the United Nations in April 1951, I believe it was. And so what Tubman seized on that and said, okay, here you are. You're committing international. You're committing. You're trying to conspire against my government by calling in foreigners to interfere, a foreign organization to interfere in the affairs of the Liberian nation state. All of this stuff was made up. So George Weah probably understands that. Or if he doesn't understand
that. Mr. Sharif, let me interject a little bit. So I'm not saying Cummings should ask George Weah or the government for help. Couldn't Mr. Cummings find a firm in Liberia or a group in Liberia to look at this? Or even if that is too much, maybe you don't trust the entire country, can you go to Ghana, Sierra Leone, Guinea, Ivory Coast? I mean, it's all the way Great Britain, and you mentioned he was looking for lobbyists, right?
Yes.
I mean, it's even hard to get Mr. Cummings to come on focus on Liberia.
He could have found people in Liberia. He could have found organizations in the West African region. He could have found, I'm sure, some African, Liberian Americans in the diaspora. He could have, but that's not Mr. Cummings' interest. Mr. Cummings is trying to prove a point. Again, Mr. Cummings is leveraging his relationship with the people that he brought in. So what basically he's saying to George Weah, he's speaking directly to George Weah by employing Arlacco and Amia. He is directly telling George Weah that I have people behind me too. I have, the wife of Tony Blair. I have people. So he is directly. Dennis, don't underestimate what's going on. This is a fight. This is, a fight of, should I call Mr. Cummings a giant? I want to hesitate not to, but this is really a fight of two giants, and Mr. Cummings is coming at George Ware. So this is, the crux of it. Hiring someone in Liberia. George Ware probably is not going to take that seriously, but hiring an international firm will give Mr. Cummings, in his view, I believe, this sort of prestige. That he can prove to George Ware that he is somebody, and he will take the fight to George Ware.
Thank you. So Tavina, some may talk about it because we heard rumors that he was going to the ECOWAS court. So going to Great Britain, let me talk in my Wilma Cooney voice. Wouldn't that make Mr. Cummings an intelligentsia elite?
I had a problem with that. I'll be very honest with you. I felt like we have Deloitte here. We have PricewaterhouseCoopers. We have E&Y. Like I say, if you don't want to use the Liberians on the ground, they have Liberians here. So why did you go to Europe? But he said, to his defense, it was a recommendation or referral from a friend. Again, he's utilizing his network, like Mr. Sherry said. He's utilizing his network and the friendship to bring on the big, big people from Europe. Maybe it was free. Or maybe he paid money. I don't know. But he said he uses, it was a referral from a friend.
Right. And do we know how much he spent for that? Is that public or no idea yet?
I requested that yesterday publicly, because if you're going to make the report public, then you may as well make the agreement or the, whatever, what I want to call it, but the agreement public, So I'm not sure why they're holding back, but I requested that yesterday. I want to know. And I also want to even though the document talk about a statement of work, but I want to read the statement of work and the scope and everything within that document.
Right, and that's why I was coming to, right? Report writing, audit report, and any of you can, can jump at this. Is the format, right? I've never written one audit report before, but I would want to see, the purpose, the methodology, the techniques, and all these things, right? Reading it, do you see any methodology that was used? Carl, let's go inside this report and put it apart on the format, the parts of it. Do we have things that we are looking for in an audit report outlined in there?
Well, yes. I mean, there's different, depending on the purpose of the audit report, that's how it's going to be structured. What is the aim? And as we've already stated very clearly, this was more about politics and public relations. Most forensic audits are accounting audits. They have to do with financial situations. I would have wanted to see more attention paid to, the elephant, or, the big silent elephant in the room with this is how they focus their aggression against, which, also is correct, the fact that they feel that this is a political witch hunt. But in a forensic audit where you're auditing documents and you're looking for integrity, they omitted a lot of things that are very obvious, which is the very strange, bizarre, and unconventional way in which this agreement was executed. And, that just speaks back to the whole thing that this was public relations. They're not going to look at the flaws and what led to the chaos and the legal situation we're in right now. They want to focus on what's motivating it. None of this would have happened had this document, this framework document, been consummated correctly. In a typical agreement, all parties initial all pages before they sign. And then you would not even have the possibility of anyone accusing anyone of taking pages out or adding pages, because all of the pages are initials. I mean, that's done with most financial documents, most contracts that are a multi-party. While it's not required, as I said earlier, it is definitely, standard operating procedure. That is what is normal in a business, even in a political environment. So I found it odd that they didn't discuss this very blatant negligence on the part of all signatories to this document. They left that alone, and they're only emphasizing, which the other thing that's obvious, which is that, this is definitely politically motivated.
Right. So I don't know if you saw any of you, or Mr. Salif, if you saw the scope of this audit, and maybe timeline as to what part they're going to cover. I see more of an audit of the process, like the post CPP framework document. So what exactly was being audited here? Is it a document? Is it a code process? So what was the scope of this audit, and the timeline is supposed to really cover? Did you see that?
Well, I just cursorily looked at the report. I looked at the executive summary of the main report, and then I looked at the findings sections. As most reports, if you just want to quickly take a look at the executive summary, you want to be able to look at the findings. And if they have exhibits, as does this report, you want to take a quick peek at that, because then that informs the actual narrative in the report. It looks like the scope was really to be able to debunk this whole idea that Mr. Cummings tempered with the framework document that was filed with the National Elections Commission. That was really the primary scope of this report. That and that's the crux of the legal case too, the criminal case in court, right? That something criminal happened, and so they're trying to disprove that. The report, and in doing so, they took a look at, if you look again, the exhibit page, they took a look at conversation, like text messages, signature pages, different documents that went into it, and also the CPP investigative report. Remember now, there was a CPP report investigative committee that was set up. And so this report discredits that committee as unprofessional, as in fact the committee was political. And so the only time they really talked about the court case was the fact that they believe that Mr. Cummings has been persecuted, and it's political persecution. Now, prosecution is on the part of the government to be able to destroy Mr. Cummings. The government is that this is a political case. In fact, that Mr. Cummings could not have committed the forgery, the crimes, and that they're accusing him of. So they established that timeline, and then they established that this could not have happened based on, and then the circumstances, again, that theory that they established into a story about this man. So again, you come back and say, what does this mean? What does this do for anything? What does it do for the court process? I saw, for example, a tweet from Mr. Cummings that talks about what the Liberian people got, what they have been waiting for. Something to that effect, that we're happy that the truth is out there now, that this forensic report, this independent body has looked at this, and, have been vindicated. Essentially, that's I'm not quoting his tweet verbatim, but that's sort of in effect what that tweet was saying. And there were a lot of people there who were commenting and retweeting and commenting, of course. So, it really beats my imagination as to what political advice and what legal advice he got, really allowing him to go this route. Because I think that politically, if I'm advising a politician, I wouldn't have advised that, and I would have given my reasons why. And they probably could have come up with a different strategy to work with the legal team to answer the legal questions, but also to answer the political questions and keep their eyes sort of on the big political questions and picture that you want to present this person. This is not an individual who is just trying to exonerate himself and go home. This is someone who is saying, listen, this is dubious. These are trumped up allegations. It cannot stand, test of evidentiary scrutiny in court. This is all political. And so I want to defeat this and go on to election next year. This is the person we're talking about. And to me, this report does not help him did not help him effectively do that.
And tell me, my last question before we go in the report here is the scope. And I talk about the timeline. What is being audited here exactly? And what timeline is supposed to cover? Or is it like forever or, from the foundation?
So they put in a broad timeline where they look at, the formation of the CPP and the document all the way to when it was filed to NEC. It's just that blanket statement. And Dennis, if we go into this document, the document, I don't know if you noticed, the pages of the audit report is not numbered. So it's so hard for you to reference to say, okay, Janice, look at page 2, or, so we can talk from there, because it would have been a good idea to tell you, say page 2, paragraph this. So you see the scope, you see the methodology applied, you see, some of the stuff. But I'm surprised that it didn't number the audit report, which is weird, but that's for a different day.
Yeah. So let's go into the report itself, and starting with you already made mention of it, the title. Okay. So the title of this report, is this really typical of any report? So U.S. Court has an independent body to audit, provide audit on something, the CPP framework document. Can an opinion like this, the framework of political persecution, the case of Alexander B. Cummings, is that typical? Mr. Sharif, can any report, does it sound independent to you? Mr. Sharif, you are muted.
No, Dennis. I open up by saying that this is in no way an independent finding, right? So the findings will be skewed towards Mr. Cummings. I mean, it is only logical. He hired these firms, Arlaco and Omnia. So these are in his employ at these companies are working for him at this time.
And hold your thought there, Mr. Sharif. Let me put in more things that Mrs. Blair said in the foreword. Said the integrity of Mr. Cummings has been impugned without any legitimate basis. The internal CPP investigative report is wholly unreliable and a shoddy and unsafe basis for any public investigation, let alone a criminal prosecution of a prominent political opponent led by the Solicitor General for the WIA government. And look at this one. Those standing to benefit from these spurious attacks on Mr. Cummings are his political opponents, both in the executive mansion and others vying for presidential office in 2023.
All of which could be true. All of which are arguably, not arguable for me, all of which are true. That being said, when you are writing a report, an independent report, so you want the public to be the judge. So you're not telling me at the top of your report how you felt. You want me to see something. So you're walking me through a sequence of events that led to this report. So you're going from your intro to your conclusion. You let me go through the report and make my own analysis. But what the report does is that it starts with saying, emphatically stating that this is a political persecution of Alexander Cummings. And so it reads like a public relations statement. So this could have been something in a press conference, for example. A media relations person could have come out there and written this, right? So that's how it sounds like to me. And so, that to me, that kind of undermines the independence of the report. But again, it is not independent. I don't believe that it's independent for the reasons that I've already stated.
Carl, is this independent to you based on the language that we've read so far?
Clearly, it isn't. I mean, he would be. It would be absurd if it was. I mean, they paid for it. It shouldn't be independent. It should be, what he wants it to be. Um, there was a lot omitted because they didn't want to make um, Mr. Cummings look bad. So it was a paid for political review of what happened. And that is the reason he went to the firms that he went to. I wouldn't, want to have a completely unbiased review if I were in his shoes either. So I think it is, it is what it is. I'm more concerned, as I've said before, in the choice of people and people running for office, we have to be cognizant of the circumstances, surrounding Liberia, its history, its current circumstances, its current situation, who our allies are, who our foes are, how these things impact us on a global scale. You don't have to completely soil and destroy your country to protect yourself. It doesn't benefit you in the long run, and it doesn't benefit your constituents, the people that you want to lead. There are many ways that this could have been resolved. There have been many opportunities for things to have been done better than they were, and those opportunities were squandered. There's a lot of hatred and anger and negativity, surrounding this whole CPP thing. People state their opinions, they're insulted, they're disrespected. I mean, it's extremely toxic. And this is not an accident. This is not an accident. The fish gets rotten from the head. If the people who follow you are vile and hateful, it's stemming from you. You can't blame the followers for conducting themselves that way. If I'm a pastor in a church and all of my parishioners are going out there instead of winning souls, they're cussing everybody, it's a reflection on the pastor. It just is what it is. So go out there, do all your PR and make, the West and the rest of the world love you. It doesn't help you in Liberia with the people that you want to vote for you.
So, Janice.
Tabina, let's go more on the language. And I'm putting the language in the foreword by Mrs. Tony or Mrs. Blair on the screen there. And I read the.
I can see this. Let me see.
I'm going to read it. That's what I read before. So it starts with the CPP Investigative Committee report relied upon by the prosecution in the criminal proceeding does not withstand scrutiny, provides no reliable substantiation for the allegations it purported to uphold, and is wholly unsafe basis for any criminal prosecution. And so I read that before. So given that it went down to the internal CPP investigative report is wholly unreliable, I read that. Those standing to benefit are his opponents. And then the last one, I said, given the woefulness of the case against Mr. Cummings and his fellow ANC members, co-defendants, and the substantial effects this will inevitably have on their political aspirations and Liberians' choice in next year's election, questions naturally arise concerning the motivation of his accusers and those pushing criminal prosecution. Tavina, that's what I was asking the question, what is it really that they are auditing? Because we are going to motivation. We are going to election 2023. You got a piece of document that you're supposed to audit.
Right.
So that's why I was asking also for the methodology, the technique. What are the techniques you're supposed to employ to be able to tell us that this particular piece of document was forged? What does it have to do with 2023?
Right.
Why are you ascribing motives?
Yeah, and then they're talking about, he's the biggest rival to George Weah and all of that. How does that have to do with, what does that have to do with the framework document? That all these things. But I wanted to talk about something before I go to that. Excellent question. I've heard more than once about, he got the report because he paid for it. And I really wanted to speak to that because we all have, our workplaces where sometimes we bring a third-party auditor or anything from the ENY or PwC to do the work. That in no way will compromise their objectivity or their, their independence because, our company is paying for ENY to come or whoever else. So I think this, this Blair thing, I think they went too far. And I hear people talking about, oh, they're internationally known and they blah, blah, blah. Look, y'all need to forget all of that. Let me tell you something. Let me put it real Liberian English. Audit report, even written by federal government, EAY is credible, PwC is credible, I can go, the law is credible. And they put reports out there, people poke holes in it, journalists poke holes in it, audit directors, people like us, everybody poke holes in it. And they, in some instances, they will recall that report and correct it, whether the findings, whether the language, or all of that. So to put this Blair on the pedestal that because she internationally known and nobody will question her report, you need to cut that crap off. You need to cut it off. Let me tell you something. So to the report is to tell you the truth, I would have had a problem with the investigative report. So I may not have used the languages that they use, but I wouldn't use it as a primary source simply because the parties that were involved, they were not independent. Also, the report was inadequate. So I wouldn't have used it to come to a logical conclusion. I wouldn't have. I mean, I just look at it just to find some of my background information, but I wouldn't use it, you know, to really say I'm looking at statement of facts or I'm looking at, you know, evidence to form a logical conclusion. I wouldn't do that because no,
exactly.
I wouldn't have.
But what was done to come to this conclusion? From what we see, they did not interview people. They said they look at open source documents or something open source. They also look at reliable. They talk to reliable people, for those they found reliable. I mean, how can you do an audit report on a document and you don't talk to the people that wrote the document? I mean, did they talk to Mo Ali, who was on, you know, somebody saying on the template and carrying the thing around for them to?
You read around, and, you know, they could have used DocuSign, right? It's like a free app. They ran around and got signatures in 2021 from place to place. Mo Ali go around getting. They could have used DocuSign, and DocuSign would have ensured that all the pages were initialed.
Exactly.
Even Google Doc, at least
real design.
Or use email instead of WhatsApp.
I mean,
come on, who sent official document to WhatsApp? Come on now.
Who does that? It's embarrassing.
Well, that's a Liberian way. A lot of people.
No,
and I see them running away, justifying that kind of crap. Are you out of your mind?
Well, I'm sorry to say, because a lot of people have sent me serious documents via WhatsApp and say, "Can you email me? Can you?"
But you have to still email it.
No, so you can send a document via WhatsApp and you can forward it to, you know, your email, open it in whatever platform you want. That's not the issue. The issue for me is the signatures, the process of getting it signed. There's so many free apps that you can use that are legally binding. DocuSign is like the most popular one. And you just send, and all parties have to review and initial each page. Right. And that way you don't even have to worry about any of this. We wouldn't even be in this situation. This man would not even be having his name dragged through the mud if these things were done properly. That's the problem. Things were not done properly. That's why we are where we are.
So maybe we need to put the responsibility on Cummings because he coming from the corporate world. He was leading at that time. He should have initiated that process.
I would say I would hold all the leaders, the people, the organizers, the drafters, the lawyers, all of them are responsible. You know, I wouldn't put that all on one person. This was not a one-man show. There's too many people involved, and somewhere along the line, someone could have said, "This is wrong." You know, nobody said anything. Nobody said anything when Mo Ali was going from office to office with a pen and a document in his hand, like it's 1901. Even in 1901, they would have made everyone sit at the table together. I mean, what kind of process was this?
Right, not the entire process, but just that piece to say, guys, here's the document, instead of putting it by email. You know,
yeah, it was just. I agree with you, sis. It was completely. My sister, it was completely. I don't know. I'm not. It's embarrassing.
It's crazy to think about. Right,
okay, I'm gonna read a text message sent to me by someone in the higher up of the ANC. Say, Dennis, I remind you and your guests that reputable global firms are paid for their services and they provide independent investigative reports or findings. With all due respect, it is pedestrian to state that a professional firm cannot be independent because they are investigating the person who is paying for the service. I'm sure you have heard about Deloitte, Pricewaterhouse, and exactly that's exactly what we are saying, right?
Yeah, she's corrected that, Dennis. I am not impressed by this Omnia and Alaco. If you read a document, it's not even really thoroughly done. For one,
No.
and the purpose could have been: listen, this document, even if Mr. Cummings, this friend, paid for this to clear his name, to have something good about him out there, it could have also served as a political persuasive piece, right? And how you do that, you get contrarian views. You go and look for adversarial individuals who are part of this. Try to attempt at least to interview them. If they decline, you document that.
And you make that part of your report.
Make that part of your report. That's evidence building. So you say, listen, Mr. Ure, we would like to interview you. We've been hired. We are independent. This is a forensic trial. Forensic means what? It means
collection of facts from all sources.
Yes. Exactly. So then Mr. Ure said, no, that's nonsense. I don't want to be a part of it. Invite the Unity Party Secretary Mo Ali. Let Mo Ali say, I don't want to be part of it, And then you document that. You make that they did. You timestamp it. We reach out to them. Here's the evidence, so that it sort of exudes this credibility of this so-called international firm, or these two firms that have they did some very shabby work, the very elementary work. Not only the narrative, even how I was rating, it's just poorly rating drafting work. If you go through it a bit more slowly, right? As we were talking, I was kind of looking at some of the how it's written actually. So like she said, let's not be carried away by this. Okay, so that's Tony Blair's wife, so what? If this is supposed to be a law firm, an international law firm for that matter, and then they've done this sort of work. So it's just some incompetence on top of an international incompetence. That's unfortunately that is the situation we're dealing with.
Can I ask a question?
We are talking about Alexander Cummings now. This is the corporate executive. The main reason, and we're talking about, you can put all the blame on Cummings, but what has been touted about Mr. Cummings is this is from the corporate world. This is Alexander Cummings, and that's what has been sold to the Liberian people. So why would he make these little mistakes?
He hasn't justified that. Unfortunately, his people won't like that. But one thing I've always said on the political side, I follow his rhetoric. The man says something, but he doesn't get me there. I give you a typical example. Say, listen, we can't keep doing the same thing for 100 and some odd years and expect another result. Granted. Well, how do you take me there? They can't get there. And now they say, okay, listen, this man has an international corporate experience, okay? And he can lead Liberia like he led Coca-Cola, like he led Pillsbury Company. Well, you have, he himself has said, the best predictor of performance is past performance. Okay, so if we've been sold that past performance was so superior, then demonstrate it to me by people you hire around you. Demonstrate it to me that processes you participate in, controls you put in place, products you release to me. If I see those things in the very sophisticated, they're up there, they cut it for me, and I start saying, it looks like this thing about Mr. Cummings is really true, because you can't do it all by yourself, right? The leaders, the decisions you make, people you hire, people you hang out with, advisors whose advice you listen to. And if I see all of that wrong and they're not really working, I begin to question what are judgment and I don't want to say the man is not educated, right? He went to Clark Atlanta University, MBA, went to college in Illinois, in Cardington University. He's an educated individual, CWA. I'm not questioning that. But what I'm questioning is what has been sold to us as an individual with international corporate experience and that leadership, executive experience. He hasn't been exercising executive decisions in the way that we would have expected an individual of that caliber to do.
Mr. Sharif, they saw us look at flatbed, we open it, they say we are, and this is what I mean. Mr. Cummings accepted a document, this report, with 0 page numbers, right? The Yombly Kanga report that he was part of in the beginning, that his group were in, now they are tearing it apart. He's quiet about that. this corporate executive couldn't even use DocuSign or even Google Doc to say, let's collaborate on the document and track changes so we won't be here. Okay. No interviews in this. Even key players, they say they talk to people they deem reliable. I don't know if you can mention people names, or Tevi, you wrote some of these things, and all of you know about. Can you tell me who you interviewed, who you spoke to? Nothing like that. And Mr. Cummings and his group, they are carrying this report around, singing hallelujah. Tell me, man, are you disappointed about this whole corporate thing that was sold to us and said, is Mr. Cummings not really performing to that level?
Yeah, I mean, to say I'm disappointed is an understatement, right? So, I have known for a very long time that there is a deficit of leadership. I have said this some time ago. I had thought initially that Mr. Cummings was better prepared, but at some point down that road, Mr. Cummings has not truly justified that, and so that's a deficit of leadership at all levels. So Mr. Cummings has not provided the requisite leadership that, he has not shown that he's ready to be a replacement of George Weah. Now, keep in mind, he's way better than
Yeah.
George Weah. I mean, he's smarter than George Weah. He's more educated than George Weah. He's more exposed than George Weah. So let's get that clear. But the fact that all of these missteps by Alexander Cummings, this is in no way, this is not trivial, right? I mean, you just outline a sequence of events that he's been associated with, and the outcome is really poor, and so this is one of those instances. Mr. Cummings should have insisted that all parties associated with this issue be interviewed, especially the principal subjects, and namely Benoni Yuri,
Exactly.
Conga Lawrence. These principal subjects should have been interviewed. And as Ahmed stated earlier, if they refused, then you can document that. You know what the Liberian people will be saying today? That Benoni Yuri ran away from this report. So we will be questioning him. We will be asking, what are you hiding? But now we're thinking, okay, well, why didn't they reach out to him? Are you now hiding something? You who are preparing this report. So in other words, they missed an opportunity here. Right? This is a golden opportunity that was really, really missed. They could have interviewed people in the administration. They could have reached out to the Solicitor General, because I feel like the Solicitor General, who I think is really incompetent, is very exuberant.
Very much so.
He's very incompetent, okay? And he's very exuberant in prosecuting this case.
It's almost personal, exactly.
Yeah, there are thousands of other issues out
Look
there.
like he even started sewing new suits just for the case.
Just for the case.
You see how he dressing now?
Yeah.
You see how he I mean, this guy is a joke. He is a joke. I mean, this guy is a joke. I mean, this is the reason why when you look at this administration, he is the epitome of incompetence in this administration.
Yeah.
And so you should
the total embodiment.
Let's go to another.
But even at that though, Dennis, before we move on, I think also, even if they couldn't wait for the whole trial to be finished, but at least wait until the court interview the key witnesses, like Ben and I was supposed to testify last week. So wait until you hear the testimony of those 4 people, so you can either ask your client more questions or you can reference that. But they jump on the report. Why so fast? Anyway.
This is another thing that is in the report is the disclaimer everybody talking about. With all that has been said, basically what they're saying here is everything that we did here. It reminds me of the lawyers who say, "Hey, this is political. Our hand not there, our foot not there." Now this report people, they came about and they said, "Hey, everything we do here, come on now, we are not responsible everything you, in other words, are you telling me that all this thing you're talking here that Cummings said, so don't hold me. Let's look at the disclaimer and read it. He said, this independent report has been prepared by Alaco Limited and Omnia Strategy. The information it contains has been obtained in good faith from open sources and individuals deemed reliable by us. Neither Alaco Limited nor Omnia Strategy nor the respective employees and or agents of the same accept legal responsibility for any inaccuracies, omission, or opinion this report contains.
So
yeah, go ahead.
I asked someone from the state auditor's office, one of my former colleagues, about the disclaimers, these types of legal disclaimers when they're used. And he said, typically you use these types of disclaimers when there's not sufficient evidence to support your audit conclusions. Mm-hmm. And it's very standard. It happens anytime you have an audit that is missing enough evidence to support conclusions and opinions that are drawn. And it protects the firm from lawsuits, basically, because they're naming people in there. Mm-hmm. So the disclaimer is absolutely necessary, because someone could go back and sue and say, well, you're saying these things about me, but you don't have any evidence of what you're saying. You made these bold statements that we, did this or did this. You never interviewed me. You don't have any documentation to support it, whatever. So essentially, these are standard disclaimers in the event that these audits do not have adequate information to fully support their opinion. And this is something you can also look up.
And what an irony,
from a former colleague that I respect.
But Carl, before you continue, that's an irony, right? You are giving a report and you are making conclusion, and in another breath you are saying, hey, I don't have all the facts for the conclusion. I'm indicting people in this. I'm saying this is witch hunt, but I don't have proof of it. What is that?
I mean, how can you prove a witch hunt other than inferring through, I think personally that it's a witch hunt, right? If someone were to hold me accountable and say, prove that this is a witch hunt, there's only vague circumstantial evidence. I can also, deductive reasoning, but it's not enough for me to go out and put a report if I have a law firm to put my reputation and my firm on the line, right?
That's good.
So I don't blame them for putting the disclaimer in there. I also don't blame them for drawing the conclusion that it's a witch hunt, because that's how it looks. I mean, it is what it is. I personally wish that we were not in this situation as a country, as opposition in the first place. But this is where we find ourselves. Mm-hmm. The fact of the matter is, the prosecutor is trying to accuse someone of forgery when there isn't, in my opinion, enough evidence of forgery. I don't believe the case should have been brought to court. I don't believe the case, that they should be preventing someone from running for office in LOFA over the CPP framework document either. The difference between me and most of the people in opposition is that I am thinking before I speak, and I'm not worshiping any particular political leader. So I can see when Mr. Cummings is wrong, though I don't support him for president. I see that he's being witch hunted. I can see, that what is happening in LOFA for the second time now, they're being denied their right to produce, have full access to the candidates of their choice. Their suffrage, their rights as citizens are being trampled upon, first by the WE administration, and now by people who think that this CPP framework document supersedes people's civil and constitutional rights. I can also say that because you have to put your country and your fellow citizens ahead of people's selfish political interests. You have to be truthful to yourself first before you can speak the truth. And people will sit there, they will fight you, they'll say things like, oh, this other group. Listen, at the end of the day, Liberian people are not going to follow someone who says one thing and does a different thing. Yeah. This is the problem with the leadership in the CPP. They have come in, and I have watched this process fail from the very beginning. I saw it come into fruition. I saw everyone come to the table without any clear ideological basis, nothing binding them together except we must go. It's not enough. The second thing that was done is trampling on legitimate democratic processes by sitting around some table and playing, the god of democracy, handpicking candidates without any due process and shoving them on the ballot for the opposition to pick from. It began with Josephine Francis. It went on, and she lost. It went on to Darius DeLon. It went on to Talia Uri. I mean, where was this integrity master, this guru of integrity, this pillar of goodness, when they were sidelining the democratic process and handpicking people and putting them on the ballot? These are the reasons I don't support. I think it's wrong. And I think that anybody who is sincere supporting a political candidate or not should be able to tell the truth.
Yeah.
You sideline people who legitimately should have gone for some form of primary to decide who should run. And you put Bennett Ayuri's daughter there. You stand in the rain, knowing that Talia Uri, who I adore, it's not personal. None of this is personal. I think Talia is wonderful. She's a wonderful human being. I do have to say that. A lot of times when you constructively criticize, people think it's personal. It's not. But we all know that she was handpicked to run in that district because her daddy said she should. And no one said, hey, this is wrong. There are other candidates that would also be qualified. Let's allow the people to choose. This did not happen. And the pillar of integrity and the wise old man all got in the rain and campaigned for Talia because they felt that down the road, it would be reciprocal. Is that just? Is that right? No, I don't think it is. If you think it is, great, carry on. But I don't support that kind of thing.
Me neither. And Tavina, let me come to you. Is there anything new in this report, or is it something that we've been hearing all the time? And I heard from Attorney Maria Yakula. I heard from Councilor Elisha Stoll. I heard from our good friend Wade Powell. I heard from another colleague, Ava. And from what I see in the report and what has been said by these individuals before, I don't see anything new. Did you see anything different from what has already been said by these ANC partisans?
Absolutely nothing new. Nothing new. It's just like somebody put all the documents together and say, give me your review all of this and give me a summary. Nothing new. And Dennis, I want to speak to that disclaimer language because I see people running with it, talking about Crow report and this. Cole was right about, putting a disclaimer. Usually government will do that, or, other agencies will do that to protect themselves most of all from liability, for risk and all of that. But keep in mind though, they also, Mr. Cummings is paying for service here. So if a firm put in the disclaimer language and say, I'm not responsible for my opinion, he has the right to push back on that. They can edit the language to say, okay, you're not responsible for this, but you're responsible to us because we're paying for service here. We're responsible to us for your opinion that you put in here because that's what we hire you for, to opine on this. So if you cannot stand by your opinion, it defeats the purpose. But they cover themselves 100%, and I'm surprised. The thing that I'm not blaming Mr. Cummings because the corporate executives, they don't know it all. Most of the time, they sit in these meetings and we just tell them about a report. We tell them, we ask questions, we tell them. But what my point is, Mr. Cummings not only supposed to hire lawyers, I know he had tons of lawyers, but hire internal auditors or trained auditors that will look at these reports and push it back. These reports go through several layers of changes or edits before it hit the press or public. I'm surprised that they didn't catch up on all these things, unless Mr. Cummings was just looking for the conclusion that says you are free, you are exonerated. Then all of these things don't matter. But you have to look at the report from top to bottom. And I'm surprised with the kind of energy they have on Facebook, beating everybody, people that they have no business beating, they really need to be beating this report. If I were one of them, I would spend my life on it and I would push it back 100 times. Too many flaws. So
Which the report shouldn't have even had the opinion, the firm's own opinion.
Exactly.
That's not an independent report. A forensic
They call it so-called investigation.
Yes.
So-called court case. That's not your place.
That's not your place.
And I see that you see the CANC language talking about this is witch hunt. That's not your place.
Yeah.
Your place is to review the documents, the people you interview, and state those things, and you walk away. That's all. That's not your place. They're using the same language that ENC have been using on Facebook. Come on now, where's the independence?
Yeah.
And you're saying, Abina, you're saying about, this report should have gone through some internal process before even coming out. Are you surprised? Because remember the CPP framework document, when it first came out, they had to take it back because it had things in there that, as soon as people saw them, and they took it back as if they were surprised that they didn't know they were there. So we're not surprised. Yeah, Mr. Salim, let me come to you on this. I know you're not a lawyer, but there's a case in court, and Mr. Cummings is hiring this group. It is not unusual from speaking with some lawyers for you to hire people to be as witnesses, right? So let's say in a murder case, you hire, those are people that can take the bullet and see from what side and all that, and they can use that in court. But from what the lawyers told me, you have to talk about that during the discovery that, hey, I'm going to bring so witness. Mm-hmm. That wasn't done. Now, the report is out and it's being put in the newspapers. It's all over the place. So you are not like we have there's another case, I think the Angel Toba case, where they have brought in some to perform some autopsy reports. And those people did not publish their report, but they went to court to be witnesses. In this case, it's all in the newspaper. So to me, you can't use this in court anymore. But let's talk about the court case and this thing. Can this really be used, or can it help to sway the jurors? What is it supposed to do? What impact is it expected to have on a court case? Or is it just public opinion?
You mean the report? Dennis, I'm not a lawyer, but I have legal training. I have 2 degrees in legal studies. So
I forgot, sorry.
I understand evidence and legal matters. Okay, so it depends on how such a document was produced. It's all the evidence construction process. There's nothing wrong with hiring an expert witness. You hire expert witnesses. Some will testify in court, some will not testify in court. Some will just work with your lawyers to help them construct the evidence, to help them analyze the evidence, to help them make sense of the evidence, build a theory of the case before you go to court. So the production and discovery process is really due process within due process. Everybody, both sides must be exposed to the same information going to court, right? So you hire your independent body to look at this. That's what we were talking about earlier. Had they done their interviews, had they done the due diligence and cover everything, even those who were opponents that took Mr. Cummings to court and things like that, we've talked about that. You have been in a position to really make this such a strong report that they could say, we believe that there were errors in the evidence construction by the lawyers, if that were the case. And so now we've got experts, people who know this, and experts, your qualification, your expertise is questioned. You have to actually demonstrate that you're qualified and competent to do this job, right? We didn't even see that in this report. The firms only talk about themselves in such a way that, well, listen, we are a law firm that does political work and public policy work, and then we also do the other firm does investigative work. What qualifies you to work in sub-Saharan Africa, to work in West Africa, in Liberia, in such a context even? Right. On a similar past work, do we have the history of you doing independent work in such a context? because you don't understand our people, you don't understand our system, you don't understand our political system, and so you come and do that kind of work. That's one side, and so it doesn't stand the scrutiny of a discovery process, of a production of evidence process. I'm afraid you can't. It would be good, perhaps, for Mr. Cummings's legal team. They can sift through and see if there's something new shows up that they didn't assemble when they were building their evidence. But you can't take that to court because it doesn't have integrity. It's not balanced. It's not an independent sort of compilation of different pieces of information and exhibits to be brought together as one body of evidence.
Thank you. And I don't know, we're going to open our phone line, 605-313-6004. The code is 791403. I know some will call me because they say they are charging you 1 cent per minute. Please don't call me. Pay that 1 cent. and so we're gonna go into that. I will read some comment, but what I want you to start thinking about, in the comment is, have any of you done any research on these two firms? Who are they? I mean, what's the history of doing this kind of thing? As Mr. Salih was saying. I mean, how do people normally take their report? If you go on their website, there are other reports that they've done. What have been their hallmark? What have they done? How are they taken seriously in other places where they have produced report? But let me read some comments here. This one from Solomon Nasser: you don't have to talk to people when you are doing an investigation on a document. So that's why I was concerned about the technique, the methodology. So what you do, they use a software and put the sheet through there to tell us whether it was altered or not. Man United Peru, put your own name, man. What name is this? Then this is purely Labyrinth Politics 101, that Cummings is being taught by this dead politician who use him to gain relevance. Solomon said that so-so UP panelists. What do you expect?
I beg you, yeah.
They're just so toxic.
Joseph Kanto. So does this mean Mr. Cummings altered the document and forged the signature of Mr. Bwaka, Mr. Uri, and Senator Yombly Kanga Lawrence? We're discussing the report.
The signature was not forensically examined.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't forensically examined at all.
It wasn't. So it defeats the whole purpose of the report.
They really examined the report.
What they basically said, Dennis, what they basically said is, this was the original signature page, and they showed another page that had no signature, and then they showed another page that had signatures.
Right.
And they took the two of these documents and they put them together.
Right.
And they were like, they took the two documents, they put them together, and they were like, oh, this clearly is not the same document. And so it wasn't switched. I mean, it was just
they
didn't compare signatures from any other documents. It was just strange. You talking about
auditing the document? They were auditing.
There's no microscopic examination of the ink, nothing that you normally see in these reports.
The Yombly Kanga committee report. That's what I mean. They went.
It seems that was their primary source of reference.
Right. And they said the basis of the prosecution was that report.
Which is why they should have conducted interviews.
And which is not true. Aaron Manning said, whole Cummings responsible because he was the chairman. That forensic report was one-sided. Anything that is not done properly, I think you want to say it's not done at all. More agree with Solomon, say, this is all UP, so let me go and have productive time. And I bet you more ain't go nowhere yet. She's still
committee.
Quincy Kilby, whether you like it or not, the firm done their work. Yeah, let's talk about the work that they did. Quincy, we are scrutinizing the work that they did. Okay. Swab Mapo, but they couldn't do that. Asking Uri or Mo Ali, because there are laws that they couldn't cross over or overlook, and that's why they couldn't even enter Pole Liberia space. Come on, guys, let's talk about the law that stopped them or doesn't allow that type of questioning.
What law?
U.S. Food and Beverage Corporation experience isn't the same as having experience running a backward, unethical, and third world country. Evans say, I second that Mr. Sharif. Mr. Cummings has underwhelmed me and I think many others who have faith in him initially. So those are some of your comments. We have a lot here. Henry Dose, Mr. Sharif, a point of correction, Alexander Cummings must have been more educated than George Weah, but George Weah is a household name, popular around the world before becoming president of Liberia. So we're talking popularity here now. Robin said the SG is unconventional with questionable morals. He reminds me of Saul Goodman from the Netflix You Better Call Saul. Which one there? I don't watch. Derek Paul said, I'm calling on Mr. Cummings and all of the staffers from ever speaking on this framework document. This is ridiculous. 5 months, the government can prove the fraud. Stephen Slack, we Liberians believe something like that because it is from UK or USA. I think an independent service would have been neutral. Those are Henry Lassie. I think if you, the host, really wanted to have an honest discussion, you have invited a lawyer. Everybody know what's supposed to be done. So the phone lines are open and we have tons of callers on the list. But quickly, let's use 30 seconds each. Let's talk about this firm, their reputation, their history. Who are they? And what have they accomplished so far? Mr. Sharif, 49 seconds. Let's start.
Dennis, I'm going to be honest, I don't know much about them. I think they have on their website, one of them, I think is Alako, where they worked in Botswana, somewhere in Southern Africa, some other countries. I didn't really take particular interest in. I don't think there's much work they've done of substance in sub-Saharan Africa. I don't think.
Yeah, Mr. Salif, you know anything about them?
No, I don't know anything about it. Yeah, I just read a little bit about the report, and before coming here, I looked at their website and things like that.
Tell me, have they done any work anywhere that we can say, yes, they have track record?
Yeah, I think Omnia. I read up on them. They have extensive, a good resume on this. I mean, they've been doing the work, investigation, audits, different things. So they have that track record. But to think because they have that track record, so they cannot do a shady report, that's my problem with all these people running with this. Most of the people that do this work is not Sherry Blair. I hear people talking about, oh, Sherry Blair did this. It's not Sherry Blair that did this work. When you hire Sherry Blair, you hire somebody like me to do the work. And I can make a mistake. And my analysis can be twisted. So it needs somebody else to review it or somebody above me and all eyes on the sheet to make sure that everything is accurate before it reaches the public. So it's not Sherry Blair that's doing this investigation. So you need to cut that off and start running with that.
She put her face on it though. Sherry Blair was in the interview. She was repeating everything in it. And her firm, Omnia, is not actually an investigative firm. The other firm he hired is the actual investigative firm. Her firm deals with conflict resolution,
and
arbitration, border disputes, investigative treaty arbitration, dispute prevention, things like that. So she would have been the one to call in to try to make amends between the warring factions of the CPP. So that's the kind of thing that her firm is known for. The firm that should have been responsible for the actual audit is Alaco, 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 whatever they call it. So that's the actual investigative audit firm. And none of them actually have any similar work that I was able to find when I tried to do some research. But, I didn't dedicate a whole lot of time to it, but just from their own websites, I didn't see anything comparable to this on this scale and even related to this at all from either firm. But Sherry Blair,
Do we know if any of them
the two companies work together though? So the two of them,
they did work together. That's true. Right. And I think a lot of the loaded political language came from Omnia.
So one is doing the legal thing and one doing the audit and the investigation. But to the point of her putting her face to it, She had to put her face to it. Most of the time when we go out there and do the audit, we brief our directors and the commissioners and other people so they know. So when we're having these closing meetings, the commissioner or the director come on and talk like he the one did the work. He didn't do the work. So she had to
That's
her
true.
face because we have all these weekly meetings, daily meetings, so they're in the loop. So she had
Yeah,
to put
same
her
thing
face.
with the governor. Yeah.
Yeah, it's her brand. She had to put her face. Yeah.
And do we know if these people actually went to Liberia or is something they do?
Of course not.
They wouldn't go and they don't want to see you, Ray? Come on. All right, let's take some calls here. There are a lot of callers. Callers, please, when you call, just ask. A minute should be enough. Let me start with Mr. Elvis Morris. He's always here. Elvis, thank you so much. You're live. Question or comment?
Thank you so much, Mr. John. Quickly, I just want to state, on programs like this, when we're discussing political parties, it will be prudent for you to invite at least one or two of the parties involved, But again, in that same breath, if they're not willing to come on and make a case for themselves, we can't bring them the platform. Quickly to Mr. Cummings, I just want to make a quick comment on this whole situation. Like I think Tabata said, being a man from the corporate world, he should have been on top of this. Those are some of our initial biases towards him to be president because we felt like he would have been prudent. He would have been somebody who would do his due diligence when dealing with legal issues and issues of processes. But he didn't do a good job on this. Another thing I want to quickly say is that Mr. Cummings should have the right to sue individuals and media houses for libel or for slander when they're writing or talking about him being the sole person who was responsible for figuring the so-called framework document. I think that's where his focus should have been on actually going after individuals who are saying that he is the sole person responsible. He's a part of the political party. He's not the individual who doctored the framework document. His political party had, what do you want to call it? A structure in place that went through the document. So I think that's where he should have went after the individuals and the news media who was printing those things and saying those things about it. Again, thank you so much. I have so much to say, but I know there's a lot of people on the line.
Yeah.
Thank you for taking my call.
Thank you so much. Let me bring in Dr. Batam Kula. Dr. Kula, 1 minute.
Yes, I need to make 2 points real quick. I don't know if I can do it in a minute, but with this whole thing that went on with Mr. Cummings and his group and the CPP and all the mistakes they made in putting this whole document together, really calls into question some of the reasons why we wanted, or most of Liberia thought Cummings would be a great candidate for the presidency. But it seems like he keeps doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. Look at, for example, how he became standard bearer of his ANC. It seems like he bought the party, came in, he crowned himself king, and that was it. There was no competition. So now you get into a situation with Omer Boyka, and it's the same thing again. Mr. Boyka wants to be crowned king, and Cummings sees that as a problem. How they don't understand the dynamics of what's going on in Liberia and that they're all playing the same game, I don't understand it. But I guess eventually they'll figure it out. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Let me call on Mr. Aliyu Kamara. Mr. Kamara, you're live.
Yeah. First of all, thank you for accepting me. Thank you very much. But let me just say this to you. Mamadi, you said the way whatever. When I go like bro, not the way or the way they can destroy the way they enter the way. If they enter more, you see that nature they were dying with. But two things real quick. Serena Seafor's incompetent. That we need to squash that. That is wrong. And the other thing that Gold said, there's no evidence in this case. We need to also squash that. That is also totally wrong. The evidence of this case is in the court. In order for you to know whether or not there's no sufficient evidence of this in this matter, you have to go to the court, listen to the process, or wait until the process is completed. Okay, there's a lot of evidence. Serena Seaforth is one. I don't like his behavior, but he's one of the best lawyers now become stigmatized. He is a bright young man. Anyone who knows him will tell you that. But let me just say this as I close. This whole thing we're having the CPP was brought onto the CPP by the ANC, and I like to say, and Entourage. Let me put it that way, because we have a bunch of people on social media who are not member of ANC, who may never even vote in any form of election in Liberia, but they are the ones who have self-proclaimed as pundits and surrogates, and they have been causing a whole lot of problems. Arizona Cummings got in the lion's den and did not try to seek sympathy from the lions. He tried to defy the lions. And as a result, this is where it ended. When his colleagues were trying to work together as a team, he kept on showing to them that he was better than them because he's from Coca-Cola. He was better than them because he knows Tony Blair, he knows Bill Clinton. And those guys that he's in this competition with, they're not ordinary people themselves. They're not foolish people. They're people of permanence. So let me just close by saying this thing, whether Arizona Cummings go to London and hire Dr. Biden, I don't know whether he got law firm to hire, whatever he does, will not determine the decision, the final decision of this case. Arizona Cummings will either be vindicated on the merit of this case in front of the judge in Liberia, or he will be found guilty based on the merit of the case in Liberia. It doesn't matter how much they run with this thing or international sport. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. DNB supporter.
No. Don't tell me something. We can undo it.
Thank you, Mr. Kamara.
Yeah.
All right, let me bring on another caller here. Is that Jerry Colette? The last 4 digits, 7287. Go ahead, caller 7287, your name and where you calling from. Oh, sorry, you were not unmuted. My bad. It's not unmuting you. Yeah.
Hey, Dennis, thank you so much for taking my call. My name is Jerry Colette. I call from Upper Darby, Pennsylvania. I just want to speak briefly with respect to the disclaimer on the audit report. Usually auditors issue that disclaimer to kind of save themselves from costly lawsuits and things like that. But again, that does not in any way negate the auditors from pointing out any red flag they see during their investigation gathering. So you cannot just say, oh, I'm not in a position to issue an opinion on this report. But while in the process of gathering your evidence, you saw something that didn't seem right, didn't look good, you have to include them in your audit report. That's why we call it independent audit report. So, I just wanted to get that out there. I don't want to be too long. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Let's go to Mr. Kesely Double.
Yes, sir, Mr. Josh. Thank you very much. And thanks to your panelists on the show. Your guests, rather. I think this almost all of it. It is a sad thing to have such a report that is entirely in quotation. If you take a look at the report, you'll see other than a table of content and executive summary, the entire body of the report is in quotation.
What does that mean?
You only quoted what the CPP lawyers said. That was all. The report did not give us anything ordinary. It did not give us anything different other than what we heard from the CPP folks, the ANC folks, and every other Liberian. So what was the essence of the report? On the whole show tonight, and the only person that I'm feeding for on this show is the sister there we use Thursday for her upright, remarks towards this whole thing. Then it came up. She said it. Just on point because of her experience in the field. I feel sorry for her because most of the folks surrounding her are ANC folks, most of her colleagues, most of her friends. So I was wondering how the researchers gonna be local like after the show tonight. I don't know. I feel for. I hope.
You said the people surrounding her where?
SKTV program. What you?
Oh.
I have a mind of my own. They know that.
No. For my sister, my second sister. I'm sorry. Bye-bye.
What from here, man? Cause every double. All right, let me go to Mr. Harrison Paul.
Yes, sir. Thank you for taking my call. Yeah, just earlier. I mean, if I was advising Mr. Cummings, which of course I'm gonna reach out to, members of the state.
Oh no, this is not Harrison Paul. This is Derek Paul.
Yeah, the king. Yeah, sir. 2
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So Mr. Jah, because Mr. Cummings almost look like he's on the defensive, like he's guilty or something. So like I said, I'll reach out to his company to never speak about this issue again. Hello?
Yeah, you said they should never think about the issue. You mean they feeling winning? That what you mean?
No, Mr. Cummings, if I was a boss, Mr. Cummings, like I said, I would reach out to some of those people that he is granted any interview, going to interview with a condition that he will not answer questions with this formal document because it is ridiculous. If there was a fraud, it should have been proven by now. The report that is out is not conforming with everything know. Nothing much in that report. We already know. That's the system we're talking about here. And if anybody got anything to the contrary, they get sued. On the company. They can take their evidence and go sue them. But nobody going to do none of that because we all know this. It's not a charade, it's not a game. Mr. Stephen talking about 29 witnesses just to drag the thing on. Because the moment the defense take over to prove their case, the case will be over. God got to be just calling lawyers. You know what I mean? So, like I said, it doesn't make sense to keep talking about this thing, trying to explain himself. It's not really start talking about economic policy. Fuck that period. It's don't make no sense. Then go past it. And if any interview grants, they grant over the condition. I'm not going to tell you right now, but the film is going to go with it. If anybody got any evidence, they're going to prove it in the court. Simple. Thank you for. Oh, one more thing, sir. One more thing. Somebody called and said, Mr. Cummings being from the corporate background, how can you do a due diligence? These are some of the things that when people do, it makes us upset. We are supposed to come because I'm going to say this is supposed to manage everybody. These people have been filing a document with the NSC. That's not the first time. That's number one. Number two, if something was wrong with the document, he can say, okay, Mr. Cummings did not do a due diligence. But I'm not trying to commit that. So they may trust people in his organization to do what it's supposed to do. They say, why didn't he check and whatever. Well, how sure are we with it? He did not check. He checked. That's the reason why there's nothing wrong with the document. So we need to stop. This man got to be fairly treated. They need to be fairly treated. Where again, like I said, nobody's saying you can't criticize Cummings or whatever. But then criticism be fair. You're going to become president tomorrow, you will delegate responsibility to other people. You're not going to be sitting worried about it and say, bring a paperwork, let me check the paperwork before it go out.
Thank you, Mr. Paul.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Thank you. All right. Time is fast, man. We have 15 minutes to close. So if any of you can speak to the callers for 30 seconds, and then we go to our next session, which is Tabata session. Tavina, you want to go respond to our callers? They call your name plenty of time. You can unmute yourself, please.
I couldn't even understand what they were saying, but the guy from Texas, my fellow Texan, I know he said something about he's sorry for me. It was funny though. I have an independent mind. I'm not with any political party. Will not join any political party. I said it over the day I join a party or group, I lose my independence, and I love my independence. I don't think the guys on SKTV are there with any party. We talk in private and we talk in public. And the good part about us compared to other platforms, we respect each other's views. So we work along very well. Actually, I just came from Arizona. I had a good time with them. So I think that statement was wrong.
Thank you. At this time, we'll take a short break. When we come back, we're going to go into the Tabata of the week, besides the report.
At Focus on Liberia, we discuss everything Liberia, from education to politics, arts and culture, entertainment, agriculture, history, religion, family, and technology. Focus on Liberia uncovers and showcases the best of Liberia and shows the world the truth about Liberia. We educate, elevate, and promote all things Liberia. We conduct interviews, panel discussions, debates, and more. Tune in to Focus on Liberia on Facebook and YouTube and be a part of the stories that make up the news.
This is Focus on Liberia, and I am Dennis Jah.
Thank you so much, and welcome back to Focus on Liberia. We are discussing the forensic audit report that Mr. Cummings asked for, and that was done by Alaco and Omnia. Again, my panelist, Tavina Cole, an IT auditor. Tavina wears many hats, so she even nurse, so I don't want to go there.
Not for this discussion.
Cole is our public policy analyst. Mr. Mohammed Sharif is our political analyst, and Mr. Ahmed Sharif is our planning and governance guru. We are missing the CDC Pape, our chief.
What, Mr. Cooney? I'm looking forward to seeing him.
I know it.
Mr. Cooney is not here, so we got Mr. Sharif. You know, he can go in any direction tonight.
He's awfully quiet tonight.
At this time, we're going to go around the room and tell me your Tabata of the week. And let's start with Tavina, who is joining us on this very important topic. Tavi, what's your Tabata of the week?
So let me brace myself for this one. So my Tabata of the week, again, related to this document, I asked Mr. Cummings about, I think he came out SKT on the 15th, about his position on the budget. And if he read it and his position, he said he will make that report available in about 5 to 7 days. I was surprised that when the audit report came out, in less than 6 hours, he gave us 2-page statement on top of this report, and he hasn't given a position statement on the budget nor on the road fund audit. So it tells me what the priority is. So that's my Tabata there.
Mr. Sharif.
So mine has to do with the city mayor of Monrovia. So sometime this week, the U.S. Deputy Chief of Mission and employees from City Hall, including the mayor, were in the streets, you know, brushing some communities, right? Cleaning up some communities. And they were using, you know, this old chapia we used to call chapia back in the day.
Yeah.
That's what they, you know, these machete. That's what they were using to brush to brush these tall grass in the community and so on and so forth. Again, how many times do I have to say this is not policy? This is not the policy. Get a real policy in place to clean up the damn place. This is not a policy.
Thanks.
Yes, it's not policy. So it's the biggest Tabata of the week for me.
And for those of you who don't know, Tabata is the Southeastern Liberian word for foolishness, nonsense. Yes. And Milton Deco say, my Tabata of the week is to see CFAs wearing new suit to every court hearing.
Who said that?
The man is a celebrity now, so you got to wear something new.
Right.
And we are calling all, you know, since I'm here every day with the show, I'm calling all the designers, you know, to send me their clothes so I can advertise. And that will not be Tabata. Let's go to call for your Tabata of the week.
So it has to do with the Invincible Park. I hear that it flooded, and then they said, oh, there's drainage and all of this. That's not my issue. My issue is, during that whole Wahala, they put out a statement that we have plans to build a swimming pool for the children at the Invincible Park. This is a country where, according to USAID, more than 90% of the children in Liberia do not have access to safe drinking water and proper sanitation. We're not prioritizing safe drinking water for children, but we want to put swimming pools in place. The priority, the misunderstanding of his roles and responsibilities to the people of Liberia is the greatest Tabata. It's heartbreaking to see somebody think that he's Santa Claus and not understand that he's there to govern the country and put things in place. You're not Peter Pan, you're not Michael Jackson, and this is not, Wonderland. This is a country that you're supposed to be governing, and it's just that's the Tabata. Swimming pool, not clean drinking water.
Mr. Salif, you thought I was leaving you out?
Yeah, I'm enjoying everyone else. That Invincible Park thing was on my number one list. Someone said that they should scoop the water from there and dump it in the hydro to produce LEC electricity. That was very hilarious.
Somebody said it's not Invisible Park anymore, it's Invisible Pool.
Exactly.
the invincible pool of water.
Right, yeah. And then people defending that, mine is, I think there's a friend who's visiting Liberia and is going around doing videos and taking pictures. So one of his documentation shows the Japanese highway, right? The Gardensville freeway.
Yeah, Somalia Drive.
It's Somalia Drive.
Somalia.
It's brand new road. The whole drainage. People are just dumping garbage there, and then it's creating a lot of flooding. So it just beats my. Not that I don't know that happens in Liberia, but you were suffering for roads, and now you have a very beautiful road, and people just dump stuff there, creates flooding in the community and everything. So, and that's one wonders whether you have local city councils or municipalities that does that sort of work, or at least oversees that. That's something really major. It was very sickening when I saw that. So I think it's on the part of the residents around those areas, not necessarily government. Although a city government, local government should be helping with that. So that's my top of that.
At least show them where to put the trash, right?
Right. Yeah. Don't put it in the drainage. It's gonna flood the whole place.
Francis Wilson said, "My Tabata is with Cummings' team. He should not be expected to micromanage their party. But my main Tabata is the fact that Cummings let those people chop his money."
Yep.
Marcus Young, my Tabata of the week is opposition running with useless common things like small water sitting on the park, only to see the park after 2 hours to be cleared. See, Nancy Combe, your Tabata is more relevant than your boring ANC report. More of this will help our people. We want Tabata, Nancy. My Tabata of the week, Samuel Tueto, Spoon TV, that Liberia is the safest country in the world. Benjamin Jonah, my Tabata is not saying Mr. Kuni, not Kone. Kuney.
I like Mr. Kuni.
He said, not seeing Mr. Kuni here tonight, that's his Tabata. Sam said, Tough Talking Thursday is now my favorite show. So my Tabata of the week is anytime something happens in Liberia, we are quick, especially people defending the government or sometimes president, we are quick to point out something. So when the Invincible Park or Invincible Sport Park was flooded and it showed that, people started showing, posting other stadia and amusement parks that were flooded and say, how about this one? The last time we saw Mr. Weir swimming during the country tour, and then they will show us people, other presidents swimming. When we saw Mr. Weir in the studio making music, what they show us, Bill Clinton playing sax, or Barack Obama shooting some hoops. To me, this is complete Tabata. We always look for excuses and we don't. And then when it comes to the good side, we don't point at anything. We just sit down. Okay. I think to me, that's Tabata. It's not everything you're going to be making those kind of comparisons. Last Tabata is Old Man Bwaka celebrating with Cephas like friends. He said, Tabata is old man Boaka celebrating with CFOs like friends. As a man witness, what do you think? Solomon Mantabata for the week is to hear and see people who condemn Cummings want him to give solution to Liberal's budget problems. Well, that's the those are the Tabata. Now we are up time is we have 3 minutes to close. Let's go around the room and get your closing comment on this all important topic about the forensic audit report. Or since they call it the other people report, so-called committee report, maybe there too is so-called. Somebody would say, well, thank you so much for coming. Thank you very much for coming. I want to thank our viewers for staying here with us for these long 2 hours to talk about this report. Let's go around the room and get your closing comment and start with Call.
So, yeah, as usual,
Call,
like I said, we have
Call, your audio is having some problem here. So you can fix it while I go to Mr. Sirleaf.
Okay, thank you again, Dennis, and thanks to my esteemed co-panelists here. I really enjoyed the interaction. I just want to say that we agreed to come on this platform to talk about Liberia because we care about Liberia. Because it's the only place we call home that we can run to. We have families there. We care about the country. We think we have ideas we can contribute. This is not personal. Sometimes after appearances like these, people contact us and, people have personal differences. We want to see our country get better. If someone presents themselves as an individual who wants to be president of the country, they lend themselves to scrutiny. And this is what we're doing. And so I think that that is something for us to point out, and people should really take away when people show up to contribute and that they're here in good faith. They want to contribute to the conversation to what's happening back home. I think finally, this report is a so-called forensic report. There's nothing forensic about it, in my opinion. I was not thoroughly done. I think that it was a strategic political mistake, if not a strategic legal mistake on the part of Mr. Cummings, and that reflects poorly on judgment. Nobody's saying Mr. Cummings should micromanage every staff and everything he does, but an important matter such as this at least should have passed his desk, his close scrutiny and review, and his legal people's review. And so when we point out that if something is done poorly, if it's a strategic error, terrible for public relations, terrible for politics, yes, that indeed he should be accountable because he wants to be president of our country. That's poor judgment, poor leadership. That doesn't reflect what we've been hearing. It's nothing personal. For me, I say I don't know the man. I'm not a member of any political party, so I'm not here to speak in a political partisan capacity. So again, I want to thank you for inviting me, Dennis, to be here to participate in this conversation tonight.
Thank you. Call?
Yeah, I don't know if the audio's better.
No.
Okay, then I'll pass.
All right.
No, we want to hear from you, like echoing.
If you go out and come back in, it will be good. Let's go to Mohammed while you go out and come back in. We want to get to the person.
So Dennis, one thing leads to another. So if there were a speedy trial, if there was, even the semblance of transparent justice, we would probably not be talking about this. But you don't have that. This man has been put through this process called trial. It's a charade. It's a disgrace. He's been put through this for several months now. So at what point that this government is going to show some responsibility to have a fair and speedy trial? They're not interested in a fair and speedy trial. It's a show. You see it every day. And so he hires this group to do a piece of work for him. And we are critiquing this work from a place, I believe, of independence and love for our country. Nobody's sitting around here trying to pick at a report just for the sake of picking at the report. We hope that we've done a good job with that. I certainly think that my colleagues here have.
I think so
But
too.
I continue to say this. The government is responsible for a lot of this. The government of George Weah is a corporate, so you cannot put this man through this process, which I think is so unfair that you have so many different things going on in the country with people dying, people are hungry, with poverty, the level of poverty. And in the midst of that, George Weah and his cronies are getting wealthier and wealthier. And the Liberian people are not even talking about that. What are we talking about? We're talking about a court case involving
Frivolous.
opposition parties. It's frivolous, as to borrow Cole's words here. So I just I do care a lot about what's going on with this report, but at the same time there are other issues going on in Liberia at this time that are significant, that are so important. I think we need to focus on that as well.
Thank you. Prince William, who he alone know how to pronounce his name. Say Matabata is those who think their opinion is a fact. Stephen may not understand what Tabata is. Tabata is nonsense. So when you say your Tabata is to see a new Liberia, I don't think that's a good Tabata for us. Okay, call your voice is clear now. Let's get your closing.
So yeah, I just wanted to say, I think this is a prime example of the importance of leadership, and also those who surround a leader being truthful and critically honest with the people that they want to promote to the highest office in the country. The most unfortunate thing that I have seen through this whole saga is people incapable, when they've joined a party or made a decision to support a politician, people incapable of saying anything critical, even constructively critical, about the person that they are promoting. These are human beings. They're not gods. We're not supposed to worship them. We're not supposed to, follow them blindly. Political parties are not cults. Political leaders are not cult leaders. We should be thinking about things logically. We should be thinking about things principally. So the problem that I have seen, and I hope that we can all, kind of pause and reflect about, is this inability to look at situations critically when it comes to political leaders. We see it with CDC, people blindly following WEA. Everything WEA does is right. If you give constructive criticism towards WEA, it means you hate WEA. If you give constructive criticism towards Cummings, they will cuss you. They will say the worst things. Oh, you don't like Cummings. This is not about liking Cummings. This is not about liking WEA. This is about policies. This is about missteps. This is about unprincipled practices. This is about errors that they've made. This is about people expressing their opinions in a democracy. If the people that follow a political leader are so toxic and incapable of listening to voices of dissent within or without their political party, they are the problem. It is not healthy for a democracy. You're not a change agent. If you're so full of hatred and sycophancy that you cannot constructively listen to reasonable suggestions because you think everyone should fawn and drop at the feet of your political leader, this is dangerous. And for those of you who are in the United States that think that you are more evolved than your people back home, it is not true. You're conducting yourselves even worse and even in a more toxic way. All Liberians, whether they live in the United States or elsewhere, are victims of trauma. And this is evident in the way that these people conduct themselves. I have not seen so much hatred spewed in defense of a politician as I have seen with ANC. And that is a fact. I don't even have an issue with Cummings per se. I have an issue with the entire process of the CPP. But because of the way his followers are so extremely toxic, it's off-putting. That is the main reason I have not jumped on the bandwagon. I cannot be associated with that level of hatred towards my own people.
Thank you. Thank you. Elvis Morrissey, my Tabata of the week is that when rogue steals from you in Liberia, you have to go to their leaders to get your properties back. This happened to a family member of mine just last night. Yeah, you have to go to the
It's
Zogos
true.
headquarters. They say the Zogos, their leadership is more organized than the Liberal National Police.
And some of their leaders have been elected to office. I'll leave it at that.
I don't. It's too late for that. We are closing. Nina, your closing comment.
I just want to thank you guys for sharing this space with you all. Tough Talking has been one of my best shows to follow on FOL. I wanted to speak to something from the report, and I'll quote that. Something that said, there was some reference there that said, our nation deserves to hear the truth and deserves this report. In my opinion, the report did not meet that objective. It was clearly is not for local consumption. It's for Western consumption, and even at that, you got to be careful with that, because the people that you're delivering this report to, if some of those people on your board or committees that are used to looking at reports, they're going to question it a whole lot. In closing, based on the methodology applied, just the whole document, the language, the name of the report, and some other things, I think the report is inadequate. I think it's incorrect. And I think it begs for more questions than even meeting the primary objective.
Thank you so much. Again, we're talking about the report title, The Framework of Political Persecution, the Case of Alexander Benedict Cummings, prepared by Alaco Limited and Omnian Strategy LLP. That's what we're talking about. And I do not believe that this report has, moved the needle. From what I see, those who believe initially that Mr. Cummings is innocent still believe that. Those who believe that Mr. Cummings did alter the framework document still believe that. For those independent minds, I don't think they move either left or right based on the report. So in my view, the report has not, maybe it's too early to determine that, but I don't think that the report will have any impact. And the ordinary Liberians from the time, I grew up in the Samuel Doe era, I have not really seen anywhere where a report like this will come and opinions among ordinary Liberians will be swayed. Even the Crow report, no matter what they did, we still talk about 25 million no matter what happens. So, and this being done by people from the UK, people have been criticizing Mr. Cummings of not, they say he's a stranger, he's new, he doesn't have a base. And so if you get people, Tony Blair's wife and other people to write a report that's supposed to exonerate you, and you and the ANC people are going around celebrating this report, it makes you look like you're far from the people. Right. So I think they should kind of rethink this strategy. And if this can be taken back to Mrs. Blair and the group, just like the framework document was taken back, and maybe that's what the whole problem.
They will not question them.
Yeah,
they will not do it.
They didn't get value for money.
That is saviors now. That is saviors. They can't question their lords and saviors.
I wonder why I was not contacted. I spoke to a lot of people who work on the framework document. So if you needed people to interview, maybe focus on Liberia and other media platforms. Say, hey, because on this platform, some people will say, oh, these were cosmetic changes. They were harmless changes, and all that went on. So I think this report did not do much, and it left the whole framework document and started talking about processes, so-called committee report, and all that. I mean, they even mentioned CFOS, and CFOS, right? I think because his name is in that report, he may go and sew a new suit. On that basis, because please, Bacchus want us to read closing comment. Okay. So thank you all again for coming. I want to thank our viewers. Always keep it here at Focus on Liberia, where we educate, we elevate, and promote all things Liberia. Again, continue to follow us. We are doing, a heck of a job in Liberia. Yeah. And we're trying to bring some live shows. So continue to follow us and continue to support us, because all this requires money. You've been calling us to extend to Liberia. We've extended, but we are extending little things. So we'll be counting on your support. On that note, we end with our song that says, whether you believe the report, or you believe the Yomli Kanga report, or you think the document was tampered with or not, we are all Liberians. And what we need to rally around is what the best in us to make our country the glorious land of liberty. Good night, folks, and God bless you.
We are Liberians. Liberia is our home.